Hallo en welkom bij aflevering 175 alweer van de Onboarding Show. If you don't speak Dutch and are curious about my conversation with Val, just skip this Dutch section. Hier leer je van ondernemers en ondernemende mensen die bijzondere resultaten bereiken. Hoe ze hier gekomen zijn, wat ze doen, de strategie en hoe ze klanten krijgen. Mijn naam is Onboarding en ik deel mijn opgedane kennis, ervaring en expertise met jou. Ik coach ondernemers die kennis leveren aan bedrijven om beslissingen te nemen die in hun eigen belang zijn, zodat ze sneller bereiken wat ze willen, terwijl ze meer vrijheid voor zichzelf creëren. Vandaag het gesprek met Val Geisler. Val is ridiculously obsessed with email. An email marketing conversation copywriter and strategist. Val spent over a decade on the inside of companies, from non-profits to seven-figure businesses to tech startups. She brings her background in content creation, customer experience, and digital strategy to her incredible clients every day. Email isn't dead, and Val is here to help you bring yours back to life. The last 6 years, she spent deep in the world of customer experience and research. Val built the content and email marketing for a fast-growing startup, wrote around the internet about what makes for good email. She's an introvert who loves figuring out how people think. Val started her business in 2011, and she started as a virtual assistant generalist. So in this conversation with Val, we go from this point to the end. The goal in the beginning was to simply replace her salary, which she did. But she also learned about the other expenses, taxes for a business owner, for example. Slowly, she shifted more towards project management, where she contracted other specialists. That's where she learned to focus more and more on customer experience, niching. Then she was offered a full-time position at ConvertKit, the well-known email tool. So she paused her own business, and after 1.5 years, she was ready to restart her business, but now with a focus on email in this niche of companies that use monthly recurring revenue for their business. By talking about the development of her business, it becomes clear that once she makes a choice for the direction of her business, she is clear what to say no to. By saying no to more and more leads that came to her from experience of the past, she was able to create her own blue ocean. She increased the pricing slowly but steadily. Her full day rate is now almost $3,000, and she's booked out for 2 to 3 months for projects. Enjoy the insights with Val and how she makes decisions for her business. Let's get started.
Welkom in de Onboarding Show, de podcast waarin je alles leert over de online sales funnel. Met succesvolle ondernemers en experts, praktische tips en tools die je helpen voor meer resultaat online. Dan nu jouw online sales funnel expert, Onboarding.
Wil jij weten wat de 11 winstoptimalisatie elementen zijn voor online marketing en verkoop? Vraag dan het gratis boekje aan. Dit doe je op winstoptimalisatieboekje.nl. De digitale versie krijg je helemaal gratis en voor het fysieke boekje betaal je alleen de verzendkosten. Vraag jouw boekje nu aan op winstoptimalisatieboekje.nl. Je leest het in 1 avond uit. winstoptimalisatieboekje.nl. Today I have another conversation with a solopreneur, freelancer, that has created a very specific niche for herself, and in this way, she's able to make the money that she's looking for. And that was she came onto my path because of Joel Gleckley that have also interviewed in the previous podcast. I will put the episode link in with the show notes. And Val is another person that was on my list that I said, well, I think it is really great to talk to her because she has this really great niche and the way that she charges is also very interesting. Welcome to the show, Val.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I've been reading a lot of your stuff today in preparation of this conversation, and I found a lot of stuff that you do and how you write, and I like the way that you are transparent, but also direct and I don't know. It feels easy to connect with you in your writing.
Oh, thank you. I aim to be helpful, but also not beat around the bush. So I like to. I don't want to waste anyone's time. So I get straight to the point as much as possible, but I also try to do some teaching around that. So that's the main way that I like to write. And to me, it's all about delivering value. And you can't deliver value if you aren't helping people. And if you aren't telling them the truth, then that's not very helpful.
And do you, because I've written. Jesus, it's not right. I've been reading your profiles, for example, on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And there you'd say that you work in general for what you call brands, MRR-focused brands.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah, so monthly recurring revenue is MRR. Yeah, so typically that looks like software companies. Sometimes it's e-commerce if they have a subscription service. But those are the main companies that I work with, is people who are really focused on what that monthly recurring revenue is and the impact that has on their business.
And is that mostly in business to consumer, business to business, or is it both?
It's mostly B2C. So I don't do a ton of B2B. And I definitely don't do enterprise. That's like a whole other problem to solve. And my friend Allie solves that problem really well. And so she does a lot of the similar work that I do, but more on that enterprise side. So I like to send referrals to her when I get those. But I love B2C and I love e-commerce.
Great. So I am a member of the Forum of Superfast Business. That is by James Schramko. He's in Australia, and he's doing coaching, and he has a membership as well. But it's a yearly fee that you pay. Does that fall into the in your workers, or is that just not included?
I think the membership model is interesting because you do need to work to retain your customers over time. And even if you're paying an annual fee for something, you want to continue to see value month over month so that you're never questioning that annual fee or asking for a refund and then depending on the business model, I mean, it might be that he only wants people in there for a year and then they leave. But if he wants people to continue to come back, then looking at some of the same techniques that we utilize for software as a service and subscription-based e-commerce, those techniques can definitely apply to membership-based businesses. It just depends on the intention behind it, how long they want people in the program, things like that. But yeah, if the whole point is that your job as a business is to provide value to your customers, and when you stop providing value to them, that's when they leave. And in SaaS, that's called churn, and it's one of the biggest problems that SaaS companies face is dealing with ongoing customer churn. And the fact of the matter is that you might have a really great product, but the product alone isn't going to keep your customers around month over month. For the most part, I mean, there are cases where the product doing its job is enough. But more and more these days, we have so many choices as consumers that we need to feel a connection with the brand. We need to feel like we matter and that we're more than just a number. Because otherwise we'll find a deal for a different software that does the same thing. And if it's not too cumbersome to try to switch over to a different piece of software, then the natural instinct is to want to find that place of connection and then feel some sense of belonging. And if the only thing you're providing is a service, a piece of software, month over month, then it becomes more challenging to battle churn. When you focus on building relationships and connecting with your customers on a human level, then churn magically goes down. People stay longer and they feel connected, and sometimes even if they aren't actively using the product, they'll still stick around just because they feel connected to your brand, and they'll find reasons to use the product that maybe they weren't using it before. So there's lots of reasons to focus on that connection and that customer from a communication standpoint, and not just a product standpoint.
So because you started after you left university, you started in another business, in another area. You were a stage and event manager in several companies. How does this relate to what you're doing today?
Yeah, it's all, my friend Natalie calls it a spiral staircase. We're not on this corporate ladder necessarily where it's this one straight line, but a spiral staircase where you're still going up and progressing, but the view might look a little bit different each couple of steps, and that's certainly been true for me. I mean, I did go to school for theater production, and I worked in theater and special events when I graduated, and a lot of that work still does apply today. I mean, ultimately, theater and special events is about humans and connection and creating something really special and walking people through a journey together, and all of that goes into the work that I do today. Today I do it sitting behind a computer and through email, but that experience, that overall customer journey, or in the case of an event or theater production, that the journey the audience goes on, it's all still there, and that's the piece that carries through in every kind of work that I've ever done.
Mm-hmm. So, in the theater, you're in direct. You're on the stage. You're in the center. And now, since you started your own business with your own website, you've more or less becoming like an introvert because you're just behind your website or your screen.
Well, in theater, I majored in theater production, and I was a stage manager, which means you're behind the scenes. Yeah, so I was never on stage or in the lights or anything. I was definitely behind the scenes, and the person who would make everything happen without, ideally, no one in the audience knows that I'm there if everything's going well. And that's still very much true for the work that I do today. If everything's working smoothly and going well, then it's not even a thought in the customer's mind that somebody is doing all these things, and that they are being segmented and sent communication based on their activity, and they don't even think about that because it's happening so smoothly behind the scenes. And that's the work that I do. I think I've always been an introvert, and it's just manifested itself in different ways. But it's still focused on people, but I get to do it from a little bit more of a quiet place and not surrounded by people in theater necessarily anymore.
I see. I can understand the parallels now there.
Yeah.
So how did you? What was the trigger for you to start your own business?
Well, at the time, this was about 7 years ago. I was working for a retail company called Lululemon Athletica, and they were just coming to the United States for the first time. They're based out of Vancouver, Canada. And my job for them was I was opening stores, and that really meant putting on a lot of events around town and connecting with the community. And again, that overall customer journey. And working there, I learned a lot about business. They really focused on, here's a budget, here's all the supplies, everything you need. We'll teach you how to run a business, and it's up to you how you spend your budget, how you sell your merchandise, how you connect with your community. So I did a lot of. It was a little bit of like a business master's in business or something, because it was crash course in how to run a business working there. And in doing that, I learned that one of the things that was constantly shared with us was that as a brand, they didn't want you to necessarily, unless you really wanted to, they didn't want you to work there for the rest of your life. And again, unless that was a career goal of yours, if you had other goals, the real intention behind teaching people how to run businesses was so that you could take what you learned and take it out into the world, and see change happening in your own work and in your community. So I knew that I wanted to do something a little bit different, and I had these skills that I had learned over the years there. And I had some friends who ran their own businesses, and they needed some support and help and things that I knew how to do or knew how to Google how to do. And so I offered to help them virtually and for a fee. And my goal was to replace my salary, and I did. And I became a virtual assistant before I even really knew what one was. And I just helped my friends, with little things they needed done here and there for their business. I was very much a generalist. I kind of did whatever for all different kinds of businesses. And again, like I said, my goal was to replace my salary, and I did that. But I didn't learn about okay, well, you replaced your salary, but now you have to pay your taxes. So what are you going to do about that? And, there's the expenses that come along with running a business, paying to have your website hosted and your email list maintained, and those things, those little expenses add up. So I was really battling that from a financial standpoint of how do I continue to make ends meet and not get myself into a ton of trouble here. And that was a real life lesson in how do I manage it all and be profitable. And it's something I struggle with for a really long time.
Yeah, I understand. So battling the financial issues because you had to learn about all the extra costs you had, and it was not just about replacing the salary. You had to have more money, make more money so that you can cover all your costs.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of things that weren't considered. I didn't think about all those extra costs, and so I tried things like, well, I'll just take on an extra client, and then I thought that I would take on an extra client, but I realized, well, now I don't have any. I was working all kinds of crazy hours, and that wasn't going to work out. And it wasn't until I shifted into being more of a project manager, and I worked with other virtual assistants who were specialized in certain areas of the things that I was doing as more of a generalist. They did that and that alone, and I worked with them. I hired them as contractors for me to help manage this huge workload I had built up, and that's when I started to think about specialization and the impact it would have on my business, I didn't implement anything for several years after that. But it's when I really saw people specializing for the very first time.
So how long did it take you to implement this when you saw it and when you figure out that you have to do this?
Yeah, well, my business changed a lot. So I worked with these specialists as a project manager, and in the course of that, my business ended up shifting a lot, and I stopped doing virtual assistant services in lieu of working with people on their overall customer experience, because a lot of what I was doing as a virtual assistant was that kind of administration, managing the customer flow, the project management, and all of that. And I started working with small teams on how they manage their customers, and basically like project management, but teaching them how to better manage their own customers. So I didn't have a need for these subcontractors anymore. I wasn't offering those services any longer. So my business really shifted then. And when I was doing that work, I was essentially just focused on customer experience. And that's where I really started to, at the time I thought about it as niching. That was like my niche was customer experience. I started writing about it on my blog, but I still was really focused on the niche itself and not who I was serving. So I was still doing that for all kinds of different business types. And, I was working with graphic designers and small business owners and mom and pop shops and, all different kinds of people. And so their customer experiences were very unique. And when I was doing that, I was writing on my blog a lot, and I had started using an email marketing tool, and I pitched them about working with them on their customer experience as well. I had never had a customer who was a software company, and they were a small, growing startup with some need of better customer onboarding. So
Was it ConvertKit?
It was, yeah. Mm-hmm. I pitched them to work on their customer onboarding, and they said that they wanted to hire me to write the blog and manage their blog content. And so I ended up working there full time. I left my business. I wrapped up things with my existing clients and figured I'd try this in-house role for a little bit, and worked there for a year and a half, and learned a lot about email and the way that it related to the customer journey and the overall customer experience. I learned about software companies and met a lot of people in that industry, and the future of what my business would become was kind of shaping itself without me realizing.
And in the meantime, did you said you just stopped your business for a while, but did you just also stop the website and everything? Everything just
No.
stopped? Okay.
Yeah, I kept. I would occasionally blog and email my list. I did have a pretty engaged email list, and so I would continue to communicate with them on a fairly regular basis, and at the same time that my focus was changing in the business. I was interested, a lot more in this customer journey and less about like kind of the systems and tools thing that I was talking about a lot as a virtual assistant. So my audience was shifting. They wanted different things from me. I wanted different things from them. And so it kind of made sense to have a slower cadence with the email list and with my blog and let it evolve and get all the unsubscribes and collect new subscribers and all that stuff. Yeah.
I have a similar experience changing my audience a number of times in my career as a business owner. And I find it very difficult for people to understand what I do because they've seen a number of times me changing my topic or my niche.
Yeah.
How did you work with that?
Yeah, it's a little bit of just saying, yeah, no, I don't do that anymore. And then also in a lot of cases, what I talk about has always related back to this main point of customer experience. So whether it was through virtual assistant services or through one-to-one coaching that I was doing for a while, or now through email, it's all about this customer experience, customer journey. So if someone would say like, oh, Val, she does, coaching on customer experience for web developers, I can say, well, not quite. I definitely talk about customer experience, but it's all through email. And I work right now with B2C SaaS companies and e-commerce companies. So I don't work with, the small business owner, entrepreneur who is, running a web design company, for example. So that I'm very comfortable saying, no, I don't do that anymore. And a lot of times people are referencing something I did. At this point now, I've been focused on email for a year and a half, and that's not going anywhere for me. So if someone's referencing, oh, Val knows everything about systems, well, that's from when systems and tools of, various needs for small businesses. That's from when I was running a virtual assistant business 5 years ago. So that person obviously hasn't done any research into what I'm doing now before they just recommended me to someone. So I take those things with a grain of salt. If you go to my website, valgeisler.com, it's pretty clear exactly what I do now. So I don't worry about that too much.
No, but it means that you just have to learn to say no a lot more than
yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And as I read your post from, I think it was 2016, where you had a year of hell no, it all lines up.
Yeah. You do have to get comfortable saying no as a business owner, and in lots of different ways. You need to say no to clients that aren't a good fit. You need to say no to opportunities that are taking up time that you don't want to spend that way. You need to say no to friends who want to have lunch in the middle of the day because they think that you don't do anything all day long. There's lots of things you need to say no to, and the more practice you can get, do it in small ways so that when it's the big ones, it really counts, it's easier to do.
So when you've decided that you were going back on your own and you focus on email, right away from the beginning, did you say, okay, no to all the old business, or did you just kept something going so that you at least made some money?
Yeah, when I left my in-house position, I was a kind of a general marketer. So I was this generalist again that did lots of different things. And I kept finding myself drawn toward these email projects. That was, something that I was really passionate about and still writing about and blogging about on a regular basis. And those are the projects that I really wanted to be working on. And I kind of just noticed that for some time. It was a couple of months of this slow realization of, no, I really want to be just doing email. And I learned about someone named Philip Morgan, who I credit entirely to my knowledge of specialization, because Philip has this wonderful email list. It's a daily email that you get about specialization. And I joined his list and implemented what he said every day. A little, it's like a little tiny step every single day. And over time, I realized that, where I need to be is focused on this space of email marketing and customer experience through email, and specifically for monthly recurring revenue businesses. And it goes even further in that I like to work on life cycle emails, so onboarding, retention, reactivation, webinars, those kinds of campaigns. I don't like writing the one-off emails or the weekly newsletter updates. Those aren't for me. I like the campaigns where you can really see people move through an entire customer journey on that campaign. Mm-hmm. That's the kind of work that I do best, and so that's basically all I do now.
That's great. Yep, and I've written this thing down from Philip Morgan, so I will put the link in the show notes because I think that was an important tip that you gave there.
Yeah, and he teaches specialization for developers. But I knew that I could replace the word developer with marketer and still learn. And so if you're willing to do that, then I think that's something that's really important as an entrepreneur and probably just as a human, being willing to learn from other scenarios and knowing like what word to replace, right? I teach yoga, and we say all the time in the yoga studio that if there's a word here that you don't like, that doesn't speak to you, if a yoga teacher is talking about the universe, but you're particularly religious, and so you can replace the word the universe with God, then it works for you. And being open enough to just making that tiny switch in something, and so that it works for you, then do it. And I knew I could replace developer with marketer, and it paid off in the long run.
Great. So I think that my guess is that you paying attention to interaction with people and community is also one of the things that that started work at Mama.
Yeah. So I started that organization. A couple of friends of mine had started it, and I had a different local organization, and we just kind of merged things together. And I knew that as a new mom who was working in a unusual situation, I wasn't going to an office and didn't have that kind of regular camaraderie. I needed something, and I needed a place to work, but I also needed support for my kids. And so just being able to connect with other moms who do work in similar ways and have young kids and the challenges that come with that. That was something that was really important to me. And we haven't, maybe it's a byproduct of having kids and having our own businesses that we run. We haven't had a lot of events or activity with that group recently, but it definitely is a heart project,
So to be clear, it is an opportunity or a network for co-working with other women. Moms.
Yeah, I mean that was the intention when it started, and we've it's been kind of evolving, and we have events for other moms, and just creating the based on the needs of the community. So if they need a Saturday afternoon event where it's just moms, and we can provide babysitting, and the kids can all hang out together, and sometimes there's speakers, sometimes it's just for working on whatever you need to get done for the day. But yeah, it's really evolving based on what the community needs.
Mm-hmm. But I maybe it was my mind. I thought about a co-working space, but it's not that.
Oh yeah, it was at one point, but that just didn't. There's a lot of regulations and red tape with those kinds of things. So especially when kids are involved. So no, we moved away from that.
Yeah, I also read one of your posts. I think it was in your blog about that you stopped doing proposals.
Oh yeah, you mean for my business?
Yeah, and you've placed it with a statement of work. I think that sounded very interesting to me.
Oh yeah, so essentially they're kind of the same thing. A statement of work is a proposal with the terms and conditions attached to it. So it's a combination of a proposal and a contract, and it allows the customer to sign off on it right away. So they can read through everything. All of it's right there. There's no, oh, okay, yes, I accept the proposal. Okay, here's a contract. Accept that. Okay, I'll send that back. That's too many opportunities for them to change their mind.
Right.
Whereas with a statement of work, they're getting everything all together. It's right there. They can sign it, send it back, and it's done. That in a form of payment, and it's all taken care of. There's not a lot of back and forth.
Right.
And I've found that to be really, really successful in moving clients through that customer journey.
Mm-hmm. I've in the previous podcast, I've been talking to Peter, and he uses another method that I also been talking about with potential with a number of entrepreneurs. When he's with the clients talking about the project that they're working on, and he's doing training and coaching, he draws the whole process on the whiteboard or flip over. Then he puts the price down, and whatever discussion comes up and points that the client is not sure, they elaborate on that, and it also goes on the paper. And in the end, he makes a photo, and then he sends out a standard contract with the photo, and that's it. So you don't need to make proposals, long written proposals.
Right.
And the client sees the photo and again and remembers the discussion, remembers the points that we talked about, and the price they actually have already agreed upon in the meeting. And I found that a really smart way of avoiding, as a entrepreneur or a business owner, to go back to your office and make a proposal and then send it to the customer. And even if you have like the whole package together, like a statement of work, it is all written down now. Often it's something different than they expected when they were talking to you.
I love that. And, I think there is something to that kind of handwritten style. I know I've definitely, when we're talking about, when I was doing more kind of generalized marketing stuff, I would sketch out a wireframe on a piece of paper and take a picture of that and send it to the client, as opposed to then getting into some kind of wireframing tool or trying to turn it into something on my computer. I would just take a picture of that, or I have an app called Scannable that even looks like it was scanned in, so it's still on my phone, and I essentially am taking a picture, but it makes it look like it was something scanned in, and I'll send that, and it almost comes across better, like, oh yeah, you were really listening. You actually took the time to do this. There's so many templates and pre-done things out there on different softwares that a client might think like, oh, this is a template that was copied and pasted from someone else. But if you hand drew it, it's clearly for you. So there is something to that hand-drawn element. I like that idea of, kind of just shooting over your notes and having that be attached to a contract. I like that.
Yeah. And I agree. I think it is like you said, if you make this drawing or handwrite something down, it becomes very personal, and that's, I think that's it is so with you, because the personal connection with people, I think is very wanted today, especially with all the online communication going on, and having just more connection. People are looking for that.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what I do in the email side of things too, is like, how do we create a more personal connection and not make it so standardized or cold, or about, closing the sale, but creating a connection with people so that they feel like they matter and they're not just one of, thousands of customers.
Okay, I have a couple of questions, and we only have 5 minutes
left.
I saw that you have a really nice series going on your blog about these teardowns of onboarding email sequences.
Yeah.
How does that work for you? Do you see that people are attracted to that and that potential clients come from it?
Yeah, it's so funny. People ask me about these teardowns all the time. I started doing them because I saw a need for better emails. I didn't have a lot of client work to show for what I could do. So I had a couple of clients, but I felt like, well, I need to show people more what I can actually do. And I was kind of inspired by Moz had these whiteboard Fridays, so they did, and I was kind of inspired by that to say, like, well, how can I do my version of that? And so I picked a couple companies and signed up for their email list, got all their onboarding emails and or lack thereof, and then shared my commentary and added emails. I've written swipe copy on my blog. I have said what works and what doesn't work. And yes, every time I publish a teardown, I have someone else who's interested in working with me. There's only been one teardown that I've done that the client that company has actually hired me, and they didn't hire me until about 9 months later. So it took some time and relationship building. But if you do teardowns properly, then you're not burning bridges. You're not making anybody mad. I do mine with respect. And again, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, sharing value. So I know that when I do that, I'm only building relationships and not tearing them down. So that's why I do them, is to show. Initially, I did them to show what I was capable of, and then in doing that, I gained new clients, and now I have this portfolio of real work. But I also have the teardowns that are like, yeah, you could hire me, and I could put that into place, and then some. And other companies get inspiration from them. So I'm happy to know that they're working, even if they aren't working on the company that I wrote it about.
No, I agree. I did a similar thing for quite some time. I think I did like 50 videos, also teardowns on how their funnel is working. But now the funnel is not my focus anymore, so I stopped doing those. And actually, I've also took them down from YouTube and anything, so that because it doesn't support my work today anymore.
Yeah, you do have to do some cleanup of things that don't work anymore when you change areas. Yeah.
Okay, so you've decided at some point you're going to completely focus on what you're doing today. And how did you build up your pricing? Because today you have a strategy which is close to $3,000 for a full day working with you. How did you build up to this price?
Well, when I started offering day rates, at the time I was kind of just taking like a rough hourly rate and multiplying it by the number of hours I was doing. And even then, I think my original day rate was, I think it was like $1,400 or something like that. So it wasn't insignificant, but I figured, and even then it was more than my kind of hourly rate, because that would be a pretty high hourly rate. But my days are 6 hours. It's a 6 hour block. It's not some 10-hour thing or anything. And sometimes people ask me about that, and I'm like, you don't want my work after 6 hours. It's like when people ask me if I can squeeze them into my calendar. I'm like, you don't want my work if they're squeezed in. That's not going to be the best of me that you're going to get. So I started off with what felt slightly uncomfortable, and people paid it. And I was happy to find that even when I pushed my own personal limits of what I was comfortable charging, people paid it and they were happy with the results. And I stayed with the particular rate for a couple of months, and then I slowly increased it over time. And now it's, like you said, just under $3,000 for a day rate, for a single full day. I am still booked out. I'm booked through December now.
So you're going to raise the prices again soon.
Yeah, it sounds like I need to, right? I feel comfortable with the price where it is. My clients are happy with where it is, and I also do projects too. So the day rates are just like a way to hire me. And the other thing is that the day rates are a bit of a done with you. So there's no like hard and fast deliverable at the end of a day rate. It's like, well, this is what I'll be working on. Here's what we're aiming for, but we might not get all 5 emails written. You might have an outline. Might have 3 of the 5 written at the end of the day, and an outline of the other 2. So it's a little bit more of a done with you, and guidance and strategy is the most important, and then implementation is kind of like the last thing on the list in day rates. So yeah, it's just a little bit different way of working, and that way we're able to work together sooner as well. Because projects right now I'm booking 3 months out, so whereas day rates it's a little bit sooner. That way I can fit people in.
Right. So to have a nice close to this conversation, do you have a trick to help people to go through their personal boundaries for setting pricing that feel very uncomfortable?
Find a group of people that you trust, like a small group, and whether that's a couple of friends or a very small Facebook group or something like that, where you can say, hey, here's what I'm thinking about. I would say if you run an hourly rate, let's say take your hourly rate and multiply it by the number of hours that you're going to do. So let's say you have $100 an hour rate. And so multiplying that by 6 makes it a $600 day rate. Well, the $600 for a day feel like that makes sense for you. And if you're used to hourly work, it probably does. But I would challenge you to see what would happen if you doubled that. So instead of it being $100, make it $200, and times 6 is $1,200. And then go to your small group and say, here's what I'm going to offer, this day rate of $1,200. Here's the work that I will do within that time frame. And thinking about the value that you're providing. I mean, that's the most important thing in any work that you do is what's the value you're providing on the other end, and how will that person continue to get value long after those 6 hours are up. So if you're a copywriter and you write sales page copy, I mean, is that person going to turn around and sell $30,000 in product when at the end of the day, when they've just paid you $1,200? I think it's a pretty good value in that case. So, putting it out there, testing that value over time, and then, like I said, raising your rates when things start to go well and people are coming back. And I did for my existing clients, I gave them 6 months to continue to pay the old rates. So I let them know, hey, as well.
Okay, you dropped out just at the end, but I understood that you gave them 6 months and then you informed them you were going to the new pricing. That is really smart, because I was really scared of using that technique, but I will use it.
Give them a heads up, and then it's also encouragement for them to book with you, right? Of, oh well, I want to get in on their schedule before the prices go up, so let me get that booked and paid for. So Smart. It's a great way to get some business in the books. Okay,
how can people find your knowledge, particularly on onboarding?
Yeah, so valgeisler.com, Geisler is my last name. ValGeisler.com is my website. And you can go there and click right on the blog tab. There's onboarding teardowns. I talk about customer experience. And retention is another big topic that I delve into and will be diving into more in 2019. So take a look on the blog for that. You can sign up for my emails, and you'll get notice every single time something new is posted there. And then I'm also leading a group of copywriters through how to do this, how to specialize in email specifically. So how to get better at email marketing, how to specialize, how to add strategy services to your offerings and get out of that hourly rate or per email writing rate. So leading copywriters through that exercise on November 13th. There are details on my email list for that. So if you want, if you're interested in that, you can join the email list, and it's going to be really fun.
Yeah, because I'm just hearing about it now because I didn't find anything about it on the website. But okay, I need to get on your email list then.
Yeah.
Val, thank you very, very much for your insights. I loved it. I love your writing. So if you are listening today, just go to our website. Not if you drive in the car, of course, but if you're listening to the website, to the podcast, and you want to learn more about this and get into this fun writing of Val, just go to our website and sign up. Thank you very much, Val.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, I'll let you go as soon now. Dat was het gave gesprek met Val. Je vindt de namen en links die we noemden in het artikel op deze uitzending hoort. Ga daarvoor naar ernohanning.nl/show 175. Wil je aflevering als deze en ook de volgende, die is met Stan Lensen, automatisch ontvangen op je telefoon? Abonneer dan in jouw favoriete podcast-app op de Ernohanning Show. Dat is eenvoudig. Als je een iPhone hebt, dan zit er bijvoorbeeld Apple Podcast op je telefoon. Je klikt erop, je zoekt de Ernohanning Show op, klikt op het plusje om te abonneren en vanzelf krijg je de volgende aflevering op je telefoon. Heb je vragen, opmerkingen, reacties over deze aflevering met Val of een andere vraag over de aflevering van de podcast? Stuur mij een mail op podcast@ernohanning.nl, want dan weet ik dat het over de podcast gaat. En ik hoor super graag van jou. Dankjewel en tot de volgende.
Dankjewel voor het luisteren naar de Erno Hanning Show op ernohanning.nl.